Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. After the explosion, black shadows emerged from the ground. These people were clad entirely in black and were extremely agile. When they appeared, they started a killing spree in all four directions. Looking from the sky, one would discover that a hole about 10 meters wide had appeared at the location of each of the explosions. These men in black emerged from these holes. Not only were they prepared, but they were also very powerful. Immediately, they turned the place into a slaughterhouse. While Hui Yuhao hid underneath his table, his spiritual detection was still active. He never expected that a place like the illustrious Virtue Hall, which possessed such tight security and defenses, would be attacked. The power of these people was beyond his imagination. Among them, none seemed to be below the level of a soul sage. The moment they appeared, they revealed their martial soul true bodies and started a wild massacre. It would be hard to assemble a team like this, even in Shrek Academy. Quickly, Hui Yuhao discovered something. Because these men in black were so powerful, they inadvertently revealed their weaknesses. When Hui Yuhao triangulated his spiritual detection on the right shoulder of one of the men in black, the man's power suddenly increased 10 times. He was then able to pulverize a grade 5 soul engineer who was just about to fire a soul tool at him. At this moment, Hui Yuhao understood their origins. Body sect. They were from the body sect. However, why would they suddenly attacking the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy? And the illustrious Virtue Hall? Were they mad? However, regardless of what he thought right now, there was no way he could leave. These people from the body sect did not care about anything else. The moment they entered, they started their killing spree without a second thought. After a short while, hundreds of soul engineers lay in pools of blood on the floor. While the soul engineers had started to counterattack, the people from the body sect were more powerful than they had expected. Among them, there were at least 10 of them with the power of a title Doluor. How could their soul tools resist? Furthermore, all these people wanted to do was destroy. In their hands, the precious tables were ripped apart like scrap. After a short while, the cost of the damage they had done was unthinkable. However, Hui Yuhao took solace in the knowledge that Hikaitu and teacher Fan Yu were both not there. They had followed a bunch of students from the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy out to test their soul tools. If not, he would not be able to just hide there. However, he could not do this forever. Who knew when men from body sect would come over to his table? While Hui Yuhao was confident in his own abilities, his opponents were soul sages. A soul sage from the body sect was more powerful than a soul sage from other places. He could not beat them. Damn it! If they came, how could I escape? As he thought about that, Hui Yuhao's two hands had already turned into the Ice Emperor's pincers. His right hand released his dark golden terror claw as he tapped the floor underneath him forcefully. While the floor was covered with a metal layer about 17 centimeters thick, it was soon torn apart by his sharp dark golden terror claw. Using both of his hands, he dug furiously at the ground underneath him. Soon, he made an indent. Hui Yuhao then used his strength to tilt his table. Coordinating with his dark golden terror claw, the table soon fell over flat on the ground, covering the indent in the ground that he had dug. Unless someone flipped this table over, they would be unable to discover his presence. At this moment, a figure dashed through the sky and was soon suspended in mid-air. Pursued by countless rays of purple light, his boy shone like an illusory shadow. However, not a single ray of purple could land on him. Then, the domed ceiling turned green. Under the terrifying green light, all of the soul tools on the domed ceiling melted. Go. The figure stabilized himself in mid-air and waved his hands. Instantly, the green liquid started to fly in the direction of the soul engineers. We won't be poisoned, how dare you? A voice resounded. A film of red light suddenly started to spread as it blocked the green liquid. From the depths of the hall, dozens of figures zoomed out. Leading them was Jing Hongchen. When Jing Hongchen saw the carnage underneath him, his eyes almost popped out of his head in rage. Since the establishment of the illustrious Virtue Hall, it had never experienced carnage like this before. Everywhere he looked, he could see the corpses of soul engineers. On a battlefield, he was confident in his ability to destroy the body sect invaders with his soul engineers from the illustrious Virtue Hall. However, their attack came too suddenly. Furthermore, the illustrious Virtue Hall was a few hundred meters underground. Not only did outsiders not know of its location, but they shouldn't even know how to penetrate it. Who could have thought that the body sect would choose the dumbest, but most effective, way? They dug a tunnel from an unknown location, and then attacked its most vulnerable spot and broke through its defenses. The black-robed man in mid-air appeared to not have heard Jing Hongchen's words as he said coldly, "Kill." The black-robed man who had just destroyed a large amount of soul tools was naturally the leader of the body sect, Dubuzi. However, since he had brought the black-robed men here, he would not reveal his identity, even if everyone knew who he was. Jing Hongchen also roared in rage. "Spare no one." As he said that, a powerful red light shot out from his body. Behind him, metallic light that resembled red lotuses spun rapidly and came together. In a split second, thousands of slender, red rods were aimed at the sky. A red helmet appeared on Jing Hongchen's head, a metallic mask covered his face, and countless rays of red light flew rapidly towards the leader of the body sect. The other powerful members of the illustrious Virtue Hall who accompanied Jing Hongchen revealed their soul tools as well. They attacked the body sect vigorously as both sides clashed head-on. Instantly, soul power brimmed in the underground space, rocking it with the sounds of explosions. Hu Yuhao felt his heart thumping rapidly in his chest. This was the first time he had seen something like this. Why did the body sect attack the illustrious Virtue Hall so brazenly? Could it be for the benefit of the 3 countries on the Doluo continent? Impossible. According to what teacher had said, the body sect only cared about its own interests. Everything it did was for its own interests. Right now, they had made themselves enemies of the illustrious Virtue Hall. What benefits could they reap? Hu Yuhao racked his brain, but he couldn't think a reason for it. All he cared about right now was his own safety. 3 rays of light from soul tools had already landed on Hu Yuhao's table. Every single one of them was capable of dissolving metal, leaving the table heavily damaged. Once the table was completely destroyed, he would have nowhere to hide. In a fight between so many powerful cultivators, if he was exposed he would be torn to pieces. What could he do? Hu Yuhao didn't know. Right now, all he could do was dig deeper into the ground beneath him and fully expand his spiritual detection, praying that he would remain safe from the clashes above. However, the battles between soul powers was too powerful, already causing a strong soul power storm. Under these circumstances, his spiritual power would be torn to shreds when exploring. After he tried unsuccessfully to probe the outside world with his spiritual power, resulting in him bleeding from the mouth and nose, he gave up. He wouldn't die here, that would be too frustrating. It would be better for him to go out. However, if he did go out, which side should he help? Indeed, just as he predicted, there was a tunnel about 5 meters long underneath him. The tunnel was extremely narrow, and only one person could crawl through it at any one time. Evidently, it was new. Excellent, if I can enter this tunnel, then I won't be attacked. Furthermore, the air circulation in this tunnel should be okay. Breathing won't be a problem. Happily, Hu Yuhao used all his strength to continue digging underneath him. Boom! His table was struck by a soul cannon shell, sending it flying into the air. Some shattered metal pieces were blocked by Hu Yuhao's Ice Empress armor. By now, he'd already dug 2 meters, and he extended his body. His left hand using an Ice Empress pincer, and his right hand had the dark golden terror claw. Using every ounce of his strength, he smashed forward, and finally breached into the tunnel. Hu Yuhao didn't delay, not even for a second. He wriggled, and dropped into the tunnel. Indeed, when he dropped into it, he felt the previous sense of danger dropping drastically. Hu Yuhao sighed in relief. However, he couldn't stay here for long. Above him, a battle raged. What if it caused the tunnel to collapse? Once he got his bearings, he discovered that this tunnel stretched far into the depths of the illustrious Virtue Hall. Naturally, there would be more powerful illustrious Virtue Hall soul engineers there. It would probably be safer. Unfortunately, this tunnel was not tall enough, and he could only advance by crawling forward. First, he had to leave the danger zone. Anything else was of secondary importance. When he entered the depths of the tunnel, the sounds of the explosions outside began to soften. Hu Yuhao sighed in relief. He'd managed to dodge this bullet. In the end, he still did not know who would be crowned victor. This place was a few hundred meters deep. Regardless who it was, they wouldn't use their most powerful attacks. If the entire underground facility collapsed, even a titled Dolor won't be able to carry the weight of a few hundred meters of earth. Hu Yuhao savagely thought that the best outcome would be for both sides to be severely injured in this battle. When he advanced forward, he felt the air clearing up. Could it be an exit? The moment he thought about the word exit, he tightened up. Now he realized that this tunnel was evidently not dug by the illustrious Virtue Hall. Could it be that the attack of the body sect was only a diversion to capture Jing Hongqian's attention? Could their true target actually be through this tunnel, which he had coincidentally ventured into? Were they after some precious soul tool from the illustrious Virtue Hall? Or? Hu Yuhao trembled. He thought of a possibility which was also one of his objectives in this expedition. Even though it seemed impossible to him, he had to consider it. If the objectives of body sect were identical to his own, then everything would be easier to explain. Embryo, the 100,000-year soul beast embryo. They were after that. When he thought about the 3 red 100,000-year soul rings around Dubuzi, everything became clear to Hu Yuhao. He personally witnessed the highlight of the Star Luo auction held in Star Luo City being awarded to the highest bidder. Even Dubuzi, who had 300,000-year soul rings, may not be able to reach the level of a rank 99 ultimate Doluo. Of course, at his level, there were some negative consequences attached with increasing his power using soul rings. Which was why he did not dare to face off against Elder Mu. What bravery, body sect! They dared to rob the illustrious Virtue Hall. Only after they made their preparations, of course. After all, they were only a sect, and not a whole country. If the illustrious Virtue Hall wanted revenge, they still had to find them first. Furthermore, they took steps to conceal their identities, meaning that no one could say for sure they were responsible. After he had discovered their goal, what should he do? Hu Yuhao was put in a difficult spot, because the 100,000-year soul beast embryo was part of the reason for his journey too. Elder Mu had spoken with him about this, and because Hu Yuhao himself had his spiritual detection and imitation, Elder Mu told him that if he was given the chance, he should make a go for it. Of course, the precondition was that he had to ensure his own safety. Even if he were discovered, his opponents would not hurt him. At most, they would send him back. When Hu Yuhao came to the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy, he abandoned this idea. The defenses of the illustrious Virtue Hall were tight, and it was equipped with the latest and most powerful soul tools. It was impossible for him to enter undetected. Perhaps he could sneak in easily, but he could not get rid of the defenses. Who could predict the arrival of the body sect? They unleashed a vigorous attack, and then sent someone to sneak in and steal it. This plan was surely formulated over a long time. Evidently, the body sect was not confident of destroying the illustrious Virtue Hall in one blow. Attacking them head-on like this was only a diversion, their true objective was past this tunnel. So, should he head over, or not? Hu Yuhao knew that whoever the body sect sent to infiltrate the illustrious Virtue Hall must be someone that Dubuzi viewed as extremely important and powerful. Someone he couldn't beat easily. However, would Hu Yuhao just abandon it so easily? This was a rare chance. Faced with the body sect's powerhouse, his only advantage was his familiarity with soul tools. Time waited for no man. Without giving much thought to it, Hu Yuhao decided, no. Compared to the 100,000-year soul beast embryo, his life was far more important. Furthermore, he already had a 1,000,000-year soul ring and a 100,000-year soul ring. He shouldn't be too greedy, as it would lead to catastrophic consequences. Could he betray the trust of Brother Skydream, the Ice Empress, and Electrolux? When he thought through it, Hu Yuhao calmed down quickly. But he still couldn't allow the body sect to get the 100,000-year soul beast embryo. If it remained here, he at least had a chance to get it. If the body sect took it, he would have no such chance. He had to find a way to contact the Hall Master. The underground base underneath the illustrious Virtue Hall. A fierce explosion and tremors forced both sides to stop. All of them realized that if the place collapsed, no one would make it out alive. Dubuzi, why? Jing Hongqian asked through gritted teeth. Suddenly, he sensed something. Immediately, he trembled in rage as he cursed in anger, "Bastard, you dare to!" As he said that, he ran toward the interior of the illustrious Virtue Hall. He suddenly recalled where exactly the large explosion came from. However, how could the body sect members, who were so close to their goal, allow him to interfere? A terrifying green storm descended from the sky. Dubuzi, who did not fear tapping into his origin soul power, vanished. A countless number of terrifying figures flew towards the powerful members of illustrious Virtue Hall. They evidently wanted to kill Jing Hongqian. Hence, they disregarded the attacks of the other soul engineers. Helpless, Jing Hongqian could only retaliate. With his grade 9 soul tool, his power matched that of Dubuzi, who was likely the only transcendent Delaware on the continent. With rank 99 soul power, if he did not fear the collapse of this underground world, more than 1/3 of the soul engineers would have already perished. The battle resumed as both sides resumed their intense fight. Yet, the number of casualties did not increase much. After all, they did not fight with all their strength, but instead focused on defending. Dubuzi's aim was to pin down the powerful soul engineers of illustrious Virtue Hall and create a chance for his people. Huiyuhao left the tunnel and went into another one. Soul tool lights flashed from both sides of the tunnel, indicating that the structure was unstable. This should be the interior part of illustrious Virtue Hall. However, where was the person who came in before him? As Huiyuhao ascended, he cloaked himself in a layer of fog. After some deliberation, he also changed his form. Hidden in the fog, he put on a face mask to make himself look ordinary. Then, using imitation, he transformed into Dubuzi. One must say that his control over his spiritual power was extremely precise. Not only did his stature and appearance resemble Dubuzi, but he even conjured a black robe that looked like the one Dubuzi was wearing. In short, he looked like Dubuzi without his veil. His heart pounded quickly. However, since he was there was no chance for escape. As he thought, he slowed his steps and expanded his spiritual detection, probing out in front of him. After he walked forward a bit longer, he felt a tug in his heart. He quickly entered a tunnel to his left, where a metallic black door stood open. Inside it was an extremely spacious lab. Right now, the lab was completely empty. From the energy he sensed, he could tell that many of the powerful illustrious Virtue Hall members had rushed out from here. Since he was here, Huiyuhao had to explore. He dispelled the fog around him and put on a veil. He then entered the vast lab. The lab was indeed large, round and at least 100 meters wide and 30 meters high. When Huiyuhao entered, a huge object immediately caught his attention. It was a huge man made out of steel. It was at least 15 meters tall, and its huge frame was almost completely made of steel. From its appearance, it looked simple, but the frame of its body was complete. Its chest was propped open and inside there was a chair-like object. Huiyuhao did not just look at it with his eyes. He even made a sweep of it with his spiritual detection. After he swept it, he retreated quickly, and almost fell down. He found thousands of formation arrays on the metallic man's body. He had almost never felt such precise formation arrays before. Even more terrifying, he could sense a horrifying power in the body of the metallic man. This belonged to the metal itself. Yet, how could he fully understand it in such a short time? What exactly is it? After rushing out of the tunnel, Huiyuhao took in a deep breath, and his heart started to beat faster and faster. The booms outside seemed to have become softer. The battle between the two parties appeared to have dropped in intensity. What should he do? Should he still take that tunnel? He had no choice. Even if he had to dig after entering the tunnel, he still had a slim chance. With the Ice Empress pincer and dark golden terror claws, he was capable of digging another tunnel. If he managed to dig until he reached the rest of the tunnels in the underground base that the body sect members had gone into, he could escape. Huiyuhao sped up as he considered his options. He rushed towards the opening of the tunnel that he had entered earlier. At this point, a black figure flashed past with an alarming speed. "Who's there?" the other party shouted. An intense purplish light shone, and a frightening, suppressive force caused Huiyuhao to nearly suffocate. 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 4 black soul rings appeared on the person's body. He was a soul Delaware with a pair of thick arms. At this moment, his arms had already turned into a pair of large pincers. "Shut up." Huiyuhao's voice was deep and frail. He also removed the veil from his face. The other party was stunned upon seeing the old and frail face that Huiyuhao had created for himself with his imitation, and knelt down on one knee. "Greetings, Sect Master." Huiyuhao was very nervous now. He knew that he had imitated the right person. The other party's martial soul and dress revealed his identity as a warrior of the body sect. He was a soul Dolor ranked expert who possessed a body soul. His arms were his body soul. How powerful was he? Did he dig the tunnel with his arms? "Get your hands on it." Huiyuhao asked him. "Yes, we did." The soul Dolor appeared very excited. He presented something to Huiyuhao with both hands. It was a white tray. There was a wooden ladle on it with hundreds of gemstones of all colors. A ball of white gas was trembling slightly on this wooden ladle. Huiyuhao had last seen this item at the Starlight auction place. How could he forget this top-ranked finale item? Although he didn't know how the other party got their hands on it, he was certain that it was a 100,000-year soul beast embryo. The God-sealing altar was definitely real. Hui Yuhao took in a deep breath and tried to calm down. He snatched the God-sealing altar from the other party. He set it in front of him and took a good look at it before nodding and saying, "Not bad, you've contributed greatly this time. You'll be greatly rewarded when we return. Go on, leave quickly." As he spoke, he put the God-sealing altar away in his own storage-type soul tool. However, he immediately realized that he'd failed. His storage-type soul tool couldn't contain the God-sealing altar. Hui Yuhao almost slapped himself. How could he forget this? If the classes of soul tools were too far apart, the storage-type soul tool wouldn't be able to contain a higher-class soul tool. At this point, reverberating booms could be heard from the outside again. The man in black in front of Hui Yuhao stood up quickly, looking very shocked. He pointed his finger at Hui Yuhao and asked, You're not the sect master?" Hui Yuhao furrowed his brow. "What gibberish are you spouting?" The man in black turned fierce. "I sense the sect master's aura on the outside. You're an imitation. Go and die." He also unleashed the Ice Empress armor, though the diamond crystals didn't release any glow under the disguise of his imitation. As he unleashed both his defensive capabilities, he used the 100,000-year soul embryo to receive the other party's frightening fist. However, the other party didn't seem to take any heed as he continued to reach his hand over. 100,000-year soul ring and soul bone were a treasure to every soul master. This soul Doluo never expected that someone would allow this treasure to be damaged after obtaining it. He reckoned that Hui Yuhao's cultivation must be of a certain standard, or Hui Yuhao wouldn't have dared to trick him. That's why he unleashed his entire strength with this punch. It was almost impossible to retract his fist. However, the 100,000-year soul beast embryo was their main target. Whether it was the 100 million gold coin reward, the soul beast embryo itself, or the Class 9 God-sealing altar that contained it, they were all valuable treasures. However, he was anxious because Hui Yuhao didn't seem to care. His left hand reached for his right hand at this moment rather than grabbing towards Hui Yuhao. The body sect had expended a lot of effort for this plan. They had spent almost 2 years on their advanced preparations. They had also done their own research on the God-sealing altar. The God-sealing altar could seal life within it. However, the target must lose all ability to struggle before it could be sealed. Once the target was sealed, even a titled Doluo couldn't break out. It was normally used to seal some powerful soul beasts that had lost their fighting strength, but it was used, if rarely, on soul masters. However, the God-sealing altar wasn't completely flawless. The seal was sustained by drawing from the trapped person's soul power. That's why it was very powerful internally, but was unable to exert any significant external defensive strength. A certain amount of force could cause this Class 9 soul tool to crack. That was why the God-sealing altar was also known to be soft on the outside, but tough on the inside. Hui Yuhao naturally had some understanding of the God-sealing altar. That was why he made such a choice. After obtaining the huge experimental metallic man, he just wanted to leave this place safely. He wasn't that interested in the 100,000-year soul beast embryo either. He couldn't absorb a 100,000-year soul ring with his current abilities. Furthermore, he didn't even know what this soul beast's type was. That was why he'd rather release this soul beast, which also happened to be the only way he could resist the other party's attack. Otherwise, even Hongchen's blessing couldn't withstand the other party's attack, considering the gap in their cultivations. Survival was his only goal now. The soul Doluo who was chosen to carry out this critical task was indeed very powerful. He still managed to achieve his goal even though he changed his move at the last moment. His left hand managed to grab hold of his right hand. His body stiffened up, and his right fist stopped right in front of the God-sealing altar. However, it had taken all of his energy to do this. After all, he had completely unleashed his right fist. He knew that Hui Yuhao would exploit this opportunity to attack him, but he was fairly confident of his own defensive strength. However, something unexpected happened. Hui Yuhao attacked him, but he used the God-sealing altar to attack him. Hui Yuhao could sense where the other party's fist had stopped using his spiritual detection. He smashed the God-sealing altar towards the other party's fist. He used all his strength this time, and the strength of the Ice Empress pincer was completely unleashed. At this point, a surprised voice sounded in Hui Yuhao's mind, it's actually her. How is this possible? How is this possible? A refreshing gust of air was released from the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion skeleton to tackle the chill. Hui Yuhao's frozen blood started to circulate normally once again. The ultimate ice continued to protect Hui Yuhao's body during this chill, and kept him from being completely frozen. However, Hui Yuhao could sense that even the ultimate ice seemed inferior to the chill that was sweeping over him. He had always thought that his ultimate ice brought about the most extreme chill, but this sudden change caused his understanding to be revised. When he reopened his eyes, he was shocked by what he saw. The entire tunnel had become narrower. There was now a layer of crystalline ice about a foot thick covering the inside of the tunnel. The Sol Dolor had been turned into an ice sculpture. He was motionless as he stood in front of Hui Yuhao. The God-sealing altar was also frozen after it dropped to the ground. The tunnel had turned completely dark now. The soul tools that were used to increase visibility had lost their effect. If not for Hui Yuhao's spirit eyes, he wouldn't be able to see anything. Ice Empress, what's going on? What did you mean just now? The shocked voice he had heard had come from the Ice Empress. The Ice Empress sounded very appalled. That's the aura of the Snow Empress, Snow Empress. Hui Yuhao's body jerked, and he almost lost his voice. Are you saying that the 100,000-year soul beast embryo sealed within the God-sealing altar belongs to the leader of the 3 heavenly kings of the extreme north, the Snow Empress, who also happens to be ranked 3rd among the 10 great savage beasts? That's right. It's the Snow Empress aura. The Ice Empress sounded more certain now. In the continent, only the Snow Empress possesses an aura even chillier than mine. That voice also belonged to the Snow Empress. I'm certain that it's the Snow Empress. Hui Yuhao couldn't believe it as he asked, but is that even possible? Isn't the Snow Empress cultivation close to 700,000 years? If a soul beast wants to turn into a human, it has to make a choice at the 100,000-year mark. Since the Snow Empress has already existed for 700,000 years, how can she be reborn into a human? Could it be someone else from the same species? The Ice Empress replied, it's impossible. The Snow Empress is special. She's an ice sky snow lady that was given life after receiving the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. How can a normal snow lady be more powerful than me? It's definitely the Snow Empress. Although I don't know how she did it, I'm certain that it's her. The Sky Dream Iceworm's voice sounded, whether it is or it isn't the Snow Empress, we have to leave this place quickly. This is not the time to consider it. Hui Yuhao was jolted to his senses. Yes? He wasn't out of danger yet. He quickly walked towards the Sol Dolor. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he said in a low voice, I'm sorry. As he spoke, he stretched out his right index finger, and his dark golden terraclaw pierced through the ice, puncturing the Sol Dolor's forehead. There was still a possibility of revival after being frozen under extreme conditions. However, Hui Yuhao wouldn't survive if he remained here and was captured by illustrious Virtue Hall. It might even reveal his tracks. It wasn't time for him to be merciful right now. He bent over and picked up the damaged God-sealing altar, putting it away in his storage-type soul tool. Although it was damaged, it was still a Class 9 soul tool. It was still extremely valuable in terms of research and materials. The fighting noises outside abruptly became even louder. Hui Yuhao hesitated for a moment before returning to the previous tunnel. The entire underground base had already been reduced to a huge mess. Less than a fifth of the laboratory desks were in good condition. The losses illustrious Virtue Hall had suffered couldn't just be measured in terms of money. Jing Hongchen's expression was very pale. Streaks of red light were continually being released from his body. Dubuzi remained in mid-air. However, their targets were no longer each other. Rather, it was the swaying and flashing white figure in the air. Streaks and streams of frozen white gas were being released from this figure. However, Dubuzi and Jing Hongchen's dominant attacks prevented this white gas from spreading. Besides Dubuzi and Jing Hongchen, the rest of the people from both sides had stopped fighting at this point. They watched this fight between the 3 powerful parties as they clearly separated into 2 different sides. Hui Yuhao managed to catch a clear glimpse of the white figure. It was a young girl that seemed to be only 2 or 3 years old. Her chubby body was covered in a snow-white, cotton skirt. She roared viciously and tried to break out of the encirclement. Many people from the body sect and illustrious Virtue Hall had already turned into ice sculptures, obviously her doing. Is that really the Snow Empress? Hui Yuhao asked the Ice Empress. The Ice Empress replied, it should be. After the Snow Empress was reborn as a human, she should have turned into a human embryo. She must be trying to give up her rebirth and return to her original form. However, she doesn't seem to possess even a third of her normal strength. Otherwise, these humans wouldn't be able to stop her no matter how strong they were. Hu Yuhao furrowed his brow and said, "It's normal for her powers to fall after being trapped in the God-sealing altar for so long. Furthermore, she has experienced a rebirth into a human. No, I have to help her." The Ice Empress' determination shocked Hu Yuhao. Hu Yuhao hurriedly said, "Ice Empress, don't be reckless. The situation is very messy now. How can we help her?" The Ice Empress replied, "The Snow Empress saved me before. Now that she's in trouble, I have to help her. Don't worry, I have my own way. I won't endanger you. Don't move. I'll communicate with her." The Ice Empress was slowly released, and the golden red, 400,000-year soul ring appeared on Hu Yuhao's body. Imitation concealed its light. A huge image of the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion slowly surfaced on Hu Yuhao's back. If he stripped, this image would seem to be alive. The image moved slightly on his back, and a weird light shot out from the Ice Empress' crystal yellow eyes. A streak of strange aura was also exuded. Dubuzi was very depressed right now. He had never expected things to go this badly. They were fully prepared for this sneak attack, and had even practiced it countless times. It was supposed to be flawless. But who knew that the sealed 100,000-year soul beast embryo would escape, and be so powerful? Neither the body sect or illustrious virtue hall dared to use their most destructive weapons to attack. If the place collapsed, no one would survive. But the soul beast embryo was too difficult to deal with. Its body temperature was too low. It was both Dubuzi and Jing Hongchen's first time seeing something like this. Its ultimate ice managed to neutralize all their attacks. Even Dubuzi's notoriously lethal poison couldn't penetrate the frozen gas. In addition, Dubuzi had to be wary of Jing Hongchen even when he dealt with the soul beast embryo. While the two of them seemed to be teaming up, the suspended battle would erupt again once the soul beast embryo appeared to be on the verge of caving in. The Snow Empress body was covered by a layer of frozen gas. This layer of frozen gas was in a ball shape with a diameter of 2 meters. However, this ball of frozen gas could even freeze light, and was the Snow Empress' best protection. Jing Hongchen laughed coldly and gestured with his right hand. The soul engineers from Illustrious Virtue Hall immediately launched a ferocious attack against the body sect. The rainbow that had struck the ball of gas disappeared. However, something small was now floating in mid-air, looking like a crystal ball. It was very smooth and bright, and had many holes in it. A magical scarlet red light flashed up inside it at this point. A deafening hum suddenly shook the air. Even Dubuzi stiffened up when he heard this hum. Following this, a thin streak of red light shot out from the scarlet red crystal ball. This red light engulfed the dark green light that had restrained the ball of gas. Dubuzi's soul power was quickly dissipated by that ray of scarlet light. The Snow Empress was freed before Dubuzi could drag her away. Dubuzi was enraged. Just as he was about to pull himself together, an indescribable sense of crisis suddenly swept over him. At the ultimate Doluor level, one was almost godly. An ultimate Doluor was extremely perceptive, and even had the ability to predict the future. Dubuzi didn't hesitate, and quickly let go of the idea of taking the Snow Empress. His figure flashed, and he returned to the ground. A dark green light supported his body and blocked off the attacks from the Illustrious Virtue Hall soul engineers. It also extended out to protect all the body sect members. A desolate voice echoed throughout the entire place, overshadowing all other sounds. In the air, the frozen ball of gas was still rigid as it was covered by the red light. Despicable humans. All of you will pay the price for hunting soul beasts one day. Even if I die, I won't fulfill your greed. All of you can go and die. When she reached the end of her words, the Snow Empress was already screeching. Her terrifying soul power undulations caused the air around her to distort violently. This is not good. Jing Hongchen exclaimed, "Quickly, stop her!" As he shouted, he didn't conserve his powers any further. Multiple blurs of red light continued to appear in mid-air. They turned into barriers of light that engulfed the frozen gas. The rest of the Illustrious Virtue Hall members imitated him and added even more layers of defensive barriers around the frozen gas. The regretful Dubuzi watched the frozen gas sphere. Under his command, the body sect members were quickly retreating into the underground holes that they had come from. The body sect consisted of only soul masters. They weren't like Illustrious Virtue Hall. There were many Class 9 soul engineers helping Jing Hongchen, but Dubuzi used his own strength to bear the impact of the shockwave, which also alleviated the impact on the underground base. The rest of the body sect managed to retreat along with the corpses of their comrades, because Dubuzi resisted the explosion for them. Dubuzi was a little indignant when he looked at Jing Hongchen. Jing Hongchen also spat out some blood at this point. As their gazes met, Dubuzi revealed a mocking look in his eyes. He reached out his right hand and gave the other man a thumbs down. He only left after swaying his thumb slightly, chased them. Jing Hongchen shouted, infuriated. He quickly turned into a streak of flowing light and pursued the body sect. The rest of the illustrious Virtue Hall defenders also acted quickly. Hui Yuhao had remained motionless underneath the laboratory desk the whole time. The impact of the shockwave was almost entirely resisted by the illustrious Virtue Hall members. He wasn't struck by the shockwave to any real extent. However, he couldn't move right now even if he wanted to. An extreme chill had entered his body through his back and circulated throughout his entire body. Almost every part of his body was on the brink of being frozen. No one had seen a clear fluid descending from the sky when the Snow Empress caused the explosion. This liquid flowed onto Hui Yuhao's back and seeped into his body. The frightening explosive force had concealed everything. The Ice Empress Ultimate Ice immediately protected him from the cold as it seeped into Hui Yuhao's body. She even used her own strength to restrict that chill as it flowed below his navel region. This also relieved Hui Yuhao from the freezing pain. The Ice Empress was anxious as she called out, Snow Lady, how are you? A weak woman's voice replied, Ice, why are you here? You're even in a human's body. The Ice Empress' voice was resonating in Hui Yuhao's spiritual world. Hui Yuhao felt weird at this point. This must be the fourth one. Brother Sky Dream, Ice Empress, Elder Yi. Now there's the Snow Empress. The Ice Empress was anxious. Don't ask so many questions right now. You're only left with this little origin power now. How is your condition? Can you recover? The Snow Empress said grievously, if not for your call, I would have infused my origin power into that explosion. In that way, I could drag more down with me. Do you think I can recover? I don't even have my body now. This little bit of origin power will slowly dissipate. The Ice Empress asked anxiously, Snow Lady, what happened? Why did you become a 100,000-year soul beast embryo? No wonder I had a familiar feeling when I saw that god-sealing altar at the Starlight Auction House. You're the one that was sealed inside the altar. The Snow Empress sighed and said, are we in the same boat? If I'm not wrong, you only ran into a bottleneck in these recent few years. Before I chose rebirth as a human, I tried to find you and hoped to help you. But you'd already disappeared. Even those from your species didn't know where you'd gone. The Ice Empress laughed bitterly. Even if you had helped me, I wouldn't have been able to pass that stage. I know myself well. When potential reaches its limit, external help won't be useful. That's why I chose this path. Snow Empress, how are you? Do you still remember me? Skydream Iceworm was a little awkward. The illustrious Virtue Hall's underground base was a mess. Besides the illustrious Virtue Hall members who chased after the body sect, those with lesser cultivations remained to help those who had been injured. Hui Yuhao was among those who needed help. He was brought to a safer place after he was verified to be alive. He also acted like he was unconscious and was thus temporarily safe. Snow Lady, let me help you to gather your origin power first. Maybe you'll have a chance at recovery. The Ice Empress wanted to use Hui Yuhao's soul power to help the Snow Empress shrink the transparent fluid that was the manifestation of the Snow Empress' origin power. However, the Ice Empress soon realized that something was amiss. That was because she couldn't control Hui Yuhao's internal strength like she could before. Yuhao, do something. Come and help. The Ice Empress snapped. Hui Yuhao laughed bitterly. Ice Empress, I'm not doing nothing. I'm just scared that the Snow Empress will misunderstand if I just suddenly appear. The Snow Empress did misunderstand. She sensed Hui Yuhao's aura and asked in shock, Ice, you're residing in a human's body. How did your dignity fall to this stage? What happened? It's you. You're the one who smashed the god-sealing altar and released me. Hui Yuhao was annoyed. But you took advantage of my kindness and froze me too. Without the Ice Empress' strength, I would have become a real ice sculpture. The Snow Empress was furious, you humans are all evil. I don't need your help. The Ice Empress sighed. She knew that no one could change the Snow Empress' mind when she got angry. The only way was to clarify things first. She tried her best to explain how she had met Hui Yuhao and the Skydream Iceworm, as well as how the Sky Dream Iceworm had convinced her to become Hui Yuhao's second martial soul. The Snow Lady's emotions were evidently surging. Hui Yuhao also took this opportunity to gather the Snow Empress' remaining origin power into a small, transparent pearl using his ultimate ice soul power under the Ice Empress' guidance. He stabilized this pearl below his navel. It seemed like the Ice Empress was similar to Electrolux then. She was only left with this origin sense. She had fared better than Electrolux in the sense that her origin sense was complete and wasn't in pieces. However, the Snow Empress couldn't compare to Electrolux in terms of her divine sense. Without the protection of Hui Yuhao's ultimate ice, her origin power would have dissipated ice. I didn't expect that you'd choose such a path. The Snow Empress sighed after hearing the Ice Empress out. She had also calmed down significantly. The Ice Empress laughed bitterly. I had no choice. If not because I was desperate, I wouldn't have entrusted my fate to someone else. Right now, I can only do my best to help Yuhao. I hope that he can reach that stage one day. The Snow Empress said, Sky Dream, yes, I'm here. I'm here. The Sky Dream Iceworm appeared eagerly once again. The Snow Empress said, I never thought you'd be so loyal. You found a path to success, but you never forgot Ice solely based on this. Ice is fortunate to follow you. You must take good care of her in the future. All right, all right. The Sky Dream Iceworm didn't rush to answer. Snow Lady, what do you mean? The Ice Empress asked, Snow Lady, are you unwilling to walk the same path as me? Furthermore, Sky Dream was the one who reserved a spot for you and allowed you to undergo fusion. But do I have a place here? If I stay, I'll only be a time bomb. Once I detonate, the two of you will also die, along with this human. Without my original body, my origin power is in an unstable state. It can blow apart at any time. After the Snow Empress listened to the Ice Empress, she was actually tempted. She had to admit that Sky Dream's path was a good opportunity for soul beasts like them who had no choice. Once Hui Yuhao became a god, they might be released. However, she was in a different situation from the Ice Empress. There was no place for her here. If she underwent fusion, everyone would die. The Ice Empress was speechless. Yes. She had guided the Snow Empress here, but how could she help her? She could also sense that the Snow Empress' origin power was very unstable. The Snow Empress had lost the ability to control her own origin power. If something went wrong, disaster might ensue. Sky Dream, what do we do? Think of a way. The Ice Empress couldn't help but ask the Sky Dream Iceworm, me. The Sky Dream Iceworm laughed bitterly. What idea could I possibly have? Although my cultivation seems to better than yours, my capabilities are extremely inferior to the two of you. The two of you can also clearly sense the condition of Yuhao's body. His potential is slowly being developed, but it's impossible for him to bear the Snow Empress origin power. Is there not even a single solution? The Ice Empress asked anxiously. Sky Dream said, if the Snow Empress could control her own power and follow us in sealing the parts that Yuhao can't absorb, she could become your martial soul's second soul ring, and there's a possibility of retaining her intelligence. However, the Snow Empress is above your level. If she fuses into a martial soul that you form, there'll be a conflict. That'll be a very serious matter. Furthermore, the Snow Empress can't control her own origin power now. If I retract my power and let the Snow Lady replace me, is it possible? The Ice Empress asked flatly. Sky Dream became annoyed. Do you think this is a game? Do you think giving up your position is so easy? Your strength has already fused with my Ice Martial Soul. Without Yuhao's agreement, you can't retract your power. Even if you could, it would only cause the Ice Martial Soul to be crushed. Everyone will perish together. The Snow Empress' voice became much gentler. Ice, don't be like that. We've lived in this world for thousands of years. I've lived even longer than you. When I was first born, there weren't even humans around yet. Is death really that scary? I don't think so. Maybe it's just a new beginning. If there's a next life, I hope we can be of different genders. I'll marry you then. It's time to say goodbye, Ice. As she spoke, the Snow Lady's origin power struggled slightly beneath Hui Yuhao's navel. It started to swim like a fish. Hui Yuhao's soul power couldn't restrict it as it tried to escape his body. The Sky Dream Iceworm was stunned. What's going on? Ice Empress, you and the Snow Empress, shut up. The Ice Empress screamed, and her voice already sounded like she was sobbing. Snow Empress, don't go. We'll think of another way. The Snow Empress sighed. I have to go. I don't know how long I can suppress this origin power anymore. After I leave, all of you should leave this place quickly. Once my origin power blows apart, it'll be even more terrifying than what happened earlier. Ice, Skydream is a nice chapter. Be nicer to him, you don't have to go. Elder Yi's voice sounded at this moment. He finally spoke, Elder Yi. The Ice Empress seemed to have found her savior. Elder Yi, help the Snow Lady. If you can help her survive, I'll do anything. Electrolux smiled as he said, even if it means giving up your spirit? The Ice Empress was in a momentary daze. After that, she said determinedly, yes. Electrolux also looked at the Snow Empress and said with a calm gaze, you have one of the most powerful spiritual senses I've seen since coming to this world. Although that worm has a greater cultivation than you, he can't compare to you in terms of his spiritual sense. Your spiritual sense is also very pure, which is a very rare thing. No wonder you're the Ice Sky Snow Lady. The Snow Empress was aloof as she looked back at Electrolux. Human, you don't have to say such useless things to me. You're very powerful. Electrolux smiled, and the wrinkles on his face became very obvious. You can sense my power because you're on a different level. Although I was only left with a shred of my divine sense when I came to this world, it still exists. Although your level isn't low, it has remained stagnant at that level. After all, one's spiritual and divine sense don't belong in the same category. The Snow Emperor's spirit jerked a little. Are you the split consciousness of a god? Electrolux shook his head and said, no, I'm just a human who didn't want to be a god. In my previous world, becoming a god signified eternal death. It seems to be different in this world. It's a pity that I no longer possess the foundation to become a god. Let's talk about your matter. Your situation is actually very simple. After you lost your body, your immense spiritual sense no longer has a body to house it. Your spiritual power can no longer contain your origin power, and it'll eventually blow apart. There doesn't seem to be a place in Yuhao's body that can contain you, because he is still not strong enough right now. While it isn't possible to contain you now, that doesn't mean that it will be impossible in the future. That's why I'm willing to help you. I'm also helping myself, the worm, and the scorpion. With your strength, it'll be much easier for Yuhao to advance in the future. The Snow Empress replied, if I'm going to live, I'd rather return to nature than live so pathetically. Electrolux smiled. No one's asking you to live pathetically. I've already thought about your future. But the time isn't ripe. You need to preserve your powers and prevent them from dissipating. Your intelligence will exist with your spiritual sense. My future? The Snow Empress was a little confused, and looked at Electrolux with a new sense of curiosity. Electrolux nodded, and his lips moved as if he were saying something, but Skydream, the Ice Empress, and Hui Yuhao couldn't hear him. The Snow Empress listened very carefully. After a long while, her confusion turned into shock. Is that really possible? She asked, and everyone could hear her. Electrolux answered in a deep voice. I never exaggerate things. I'm 70% confident that it can be realized. Furthermore, it's only your origin power that will need to be sealed. Your spiritual sense and intelligence can remain in Hui Yuhao's spiritual sea just like the worm and the scorpion, which will allow you to consolidate your spiritual sense and help you familiarize yourself with this place. When Yuhao's cultivation reaches 7 rings, it'll be a great opportunity to evolve. Snow Lady, I beg you. Please stay here. The Ice Empress pestered the Snow Empress and used her long scorpion tail to caress the Snow Empress' slender thigh. That's right. Stay here. The Skydream Iceworm followed her to the Snow Empress' side. However, he was smacked by the Ice Empress pincer before he could get close to the Snow Lady. The Snow Empress turned to Hui Yuhao, and her icy blue eyes bore a complicated look. The Ice Empress was enlightened. I see. No wonder you chose this path. It's a pity. Electrolux spoke in a deep voice. Snow Lady, your spiritual sense is too unstable because your sealed origin power is too immense. We must begin quickly. Although the Snow Empress was very proud, she wouldn't delay after she made her choice. She nodded and answered, I'll have to trouble you, then. Electrolux drifted to the Snow Empress and reached his right hand forward. The spiritual sea beside them started to surge as Hui Yuhao entered a trance. Countless golden spots formed a light that was as bright as the stars, gathering towards Electrolux. A long, golden staff slowly took form. Hui Yuhao felt a sudden and intense weakness as it condensed in Electrolux's hand. Electrolux was in a different situation than the Skydream Iceworm and Ice Empress. When he fused into Hui Yuhao's body, he was only left with a shred of his divine sense. He needed to rely on Hui Yuhao's strength every time he wanted to exhibit any form of ability. Under such circumstances, the power that he wanted to use must be within Hu Yuhao's ability to handle. The formation of this staff had undoubtedly drained Hu Yuhao's spiritual power. Electrolux's aura changed when the golden staff entered his hands. An indescribable sense of purity and elegance made him seem like a god that had descended. A deep chant sounded out. Electrolux was reciting mystical words. At the start, his voice was very deep. However, it gradually started to echo in Hu Yuhao's spiritual sea. His mighty voice made him appear even more majestic. Skydream and the Ice Empress didn't move from where they were. The Snow Empress had already shut her eyes, and appeared to be sensing something. Hu Yuhao was the only one in pain. He felt weaker and weaker. To his horror, he discovered that his boundless spiritual sea was shrinking at an alarming rate. His spiritual power was also decreasing significantly. He initially felt that he already overestimated Elder Yi. But now he realized that Elder Yi was far stronger than he had thought. Hu Yuhao made such this judgment after witnessing the Ice Empress, Snow Empress, and Skydream Iceworm's reactions. The Snow Empress' pride quickly disappeared as Elder Yi recited his incantations. What replaced it was a sense of solemnity and esteem. How powerful would Elder Yi be if he wasn't just a shred of divine sense? Perhaps even a transcendent Dolor would be inferior to him. Hu Yuhao's belief grew despite the weakness he felt. He had realized how small he was during the fight between Illustrious Virtue Hall and the Body Sect. He wasn't at a level where he could get involved in such an intense fight. He couldn't even use his spiritual detection in such circumstances. He might be one of the best among others of his same age, but he was still very far from the true elites. Elder Yi's voice was very deep right from the start. However, Hu Yuhao's spiritual sea started to shake as Elder Yi continued to chat. In his spiritual sea, both bright and dim rays of light intersected. Hu Yuhao fell to a half-conscious state from the drain on his spiritual strength. At this point, a huge golden vertical eye slowly opened in his spiritual sea. A golden beam of light turned into a strong ray shining directly on Hu Yuhao's body. He was jolted awake by the strong light. Elder Yi's voice was blocked out by the light. The golden beam also started to emit brilliant spots that lit up his spiritual sea. This was the feeling that came from the Eye of Destiny's second mental sea. The power of destiny was keeping Hu Yuhao conscious. He still felt weak, but he managed to stay conscious. Hu Yuhao realized that Elder Yi wasn't just chanting anymore. Within the Illustrious Virtue Hall, Jing Hongchen grit his teeth as he stood in the underground base. Everything in front of him was simply too startling. The entire underground base was a complete mess. Less than a third of the costly laboratory desks were still in working order, the rest had been completely destroyed, leaving all sorts of rare metals strewn about. The underground base was in tatters. Jing Hongchen was most oppressed by the fact that the underground base was beginning to show signs of instability as a result of the intense battle that had ensued earlier. Luckily, it wasn't beyond salvaging. He immediately instructed his people to solidify and stabilize the base's foundations before they did anything else. The Illustrious Virtue Hall had never been hit so badly before. The material damages it had sustained would be astronomically costly, and then there was the lives they'd lost. The Illustrious Virtue Hall didn't even belong to him, it was the Soul Tool research base for the entire Sun Moon Empire. It also had to bear the responsibility of developing advanced soul tools. Even with his current status in the Sun Moon Empire, he'd still be held responsible for such a grave matter. He was bound to receive pressure from the imperial family for this body sect. Jing Hongchen was enraged. His attempt to pursue them hadn't achieved anything. Halfway through one of the tunnels, Dubuzi had collapsed the tunnel behind him while they were chasing them, which had allowed the body sect the chance to flee the area. Jing Hongchen immediately commanded the military to lock down the entire city. However, he knew that this wouldn't work. With the body sect's abilities, how would the military be able to stop them, Hall Master? Lin Jiao's voice trembled as he walked up to Jing Hongchen. Jing Hongchen lowered his head to look at him. What's the situation? Jing Hongchen attempted to calm down. Lin Jiao lowered his head and answered, the warehouse is still fine, we didn't really lose anything. All of the advanced soul tools in storage are intact. Jing Hongchen heaved a sigh of relief after hearing Lin Jiao's words, at least there was still some good news. It seemed that the body sect's target had been the 100,000-year soul beast embryo, and that they'd employed their entire sect to launch a surprise attack on them. Jing Hongchen was determined to take revenge. However, Lin Jiao's next word caused Jing Hongchen to tense up. He glared at Lin Jiao. However, what? Don't stutter, speak clearly. Lin Jerry grit his teeth. His voice trembled as he said, however, test subject 1 is missing. What? Jing Hongchen felt as if his vision had suddenly gone dark. His body shook, and he almost toppled to the ground. Lin Jerry quickly moved to support him. Jing Hongchen felt as if the sky had just collapsed. He was panicking, and was extremely upset now. Repeat what you just said. Even Jing Hongchen's voice was trembling this time. Lin Jerry's voice continued to tremble as he said, test subject 1 is missing. Jing Hongchen cursed, spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, and then collapsed into Lin Jerry's arms. What was test subject 1? It was the pinnacle of the illustrious Virtue Hall's research on soul tools. Even though it was only half complete, it was the essence of the Sun Moon Empire's research on soul tools over the past few thousand years. Jing Hongchen's face had become pale and his eyes were now full of fear as he looked at Lin Jerry. He could get away with the fact that the illustrious Virtue Hall had suffered a great amount of damage in this incident, but he couldn't bear the consequences brought about by the theft of Test Subject 1. This was something that threatened the entire Empire's safety. He took in a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. After a moment, he asked, who else knows about this? Lin Jerry shook his head hurriedly and said, I personally went to Laboratory 1 to check. I sealed the door to the lab and changed the door's passcode the moment I discovered that it was missing. I immediately came to report it to you. Jing Hongchen finally managed to calm himself down and said, good job. No one else can know about this, all right? Lin Jerry hurriedly answered. Jing Hongchen's face was currently half red and half white. His hatred towards the body sect had reached a peak. His only hope right now was that Test Subject 1 was too difficult for anyone to use, that its technology was too advanced. If it were to be stripped apart, the explosive device within it would immediately detonate. This was a theft prevention plan they'd implemented, and right now, it seemed that doing so had been the right choice. Even so, the metals they'd lost were still extremely valuable. Fortunately, the illustrious Virtue Hall was greatly autonomous. So long as this matter wasn't exposed, there was still a chance that they could resolve it quietly. Jing Hongchen forced his body to straighten up, somehow managing to maintain his cool despite the critical situation. Lin Jerry, instruct everyone who was present today to keep their mouths sealed. Anyone that dares to leak news of the incident will be executed, no exceptions. Send people to every single auction houses, including those in the Empire. Have them monitor any and all higher-level auctions. If Test Subject 1 is discovered, retrieve it at all costs. Fan Yu and He Kai-tu are currently out for an experiment, thus they weren't in the underground base. Most of the rest were also outside of the experimentation zone. The initial explosion didn't affect them. They were all very sly, and managed to swiftly retreat to a safe place where they didn't have to participate in the battle. Some of them are injured, but their injuries aren't serious. Hu Yu Hao is one of them. Our healing-type soul engineers have already checked on him. Even though he's unconscious, he isn't critically injured. He must have suffered a concussion, he just needs some time to recover. Jing Hongchen heaved a sigh of relief and said, that's good. If anything had happened to the Shrek students, it would have caused even more trouble. They have to be well taken care of, nothing can happen to them. Lin Jerry hesitated for a moment before saying, Hallmaster, do you think it's possible that this attack was some sort of collusion between Shrek Academy and the Body Sect? How else could the Body Sect accurately know the position of our underground base, especially where Test Subject 1 and the 100,000-year Soul Beast embryo were? They even managed to release the 100,000-year Soul Beast embryo. I'm afraid that there's a mole. Jing Hongchen glared at him and said, idiot. Don't I know that? However, Shrek wasn't involved. Is your brain empty? Does anyone from Shrek Academy know where our 100,000-year Soul Beast embryo is? None of them can even enter the core region of the illustrious Virtue Hall. Furthermore, we have Hu Yu Hao with us. Shrek Academy wouldn't be so stupid. They might mock us for this incident, but it wasn't their doing. And do you really think that they are that close to the Body Sect? All right, quickly pass down my instructions. We need to minimize the effects of this incident. I'll head to the palace immediately. It seems that I need to pay the Crown Prince a visit after all. It's really heaven's will. Once he'd finished speaking, Jing Hongchen quickly walked away. Even though the illustrious Virtue Hall was doing its best to suppress the news, how could such a huge matter be concealed? The matter had been made known to the entire continent after just a few days. Although the Sun Moon Empire's officials didn't reveal who the perpetrators had been, the illustrious Virtue Hall's murderous mission towards the body sect clearly indicated who the mastermind behind the attack had been. The entire continent shook from the news, and the other empires were jubilant at the news. Even though they didn't know how much damage the illustrious Virtue Hall had suffered, it was a good thing for them no matter what. The Sun Moon Empire's emperor was enraged when he learned about the matter, and his physical condition worsened as a result. Jing Hongchen was severely punished as a result. His dukedom was revoked. If not for Xu Tianran, his punishment would have been even more severe. The prices of advanced soul tools on the continent dropped significantly following this, while the prices of rare metals soared. The exchange of rare metals suddenly became much more prevalent. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.